Anderson, and an opening ceremony by Gary Anderson. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for all thy many blessings. We're thankful for all that thou hast given to us. We're thankful for our city, our state, our neighbors. We're thankful for the services that we have. Heavenly Father, please help us to choose things that will help us in our city and help us long term. Help us to do those things that are right and pleasing unto thee. We ask this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Moving on to item number 1.2, which is roll call. Darren, would you do that? Good. Thank you.
Councilmember Diane Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Gary Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Eileen Moss.
Here.
Councilmember George Ray.
Here.
Councilmember Florence Sadler.
Here.
Mayor.
Here. Thank you. Item number 2 is conflict of interest. Do we have any conflicts of interest to discuss beforehand? Seeing and hearing none, we're going to move on to item number 3, which is a public comment period. We set aside on our agenda for anyone to approach or say anything to the city council. Do we have anyone that would like to say anything tonight?
Does that apply to us, Mayor?
I think we'll have more of a dialogue.
Okay.
Is that all right, Paul?
Hope so.
Not seeing or hearing anything, we're going to move on to item number 4.1, which is discuss, approve, deny the condemnation of Hates Creek property. This is going to be overseen by, this section is going to be overseen by our attorney, Brad. You want to take it from here?
Do we come forward?
Sure. You can sit there if you want, but we need you mic'd up, that's all right.
So the resolution, and I apologize for lateness of giving it to you, but the resolution is just simply to authorize the use of condemnation authority for the purpose of obtaining an easement for the temporary construction easements as well as for the future road to go over to connect with the reminder development there, Rockloft Estates. Continuation of 1800 East, right? So all it does, it doesn't prevent, and I know we've had ongoing dialogue with Hates Creek, and they've been negotiating in good faith. So there's nothing that prevents us from coming to a resolution before. This just allows us to move forward if we can't come to a resolution. So there is a number in there. The number is, I think it's 26,132 is the amount of the 0.177 acres, if I remember correctly. It's the amount that's needed for the road. So that's the number in there that would be required to deposit with the court for an immediate occupancy. Motion, there was one question that came up during our negotiations of why this moved to the north, why the road moved from the south rather than going across through Heights City property. And there is a portion that is owned by the BLM that would prevent that from happening in a timely manner. That's why it was shifted, because of the ownership of the federal ownership of property. That, as you know, we've been through that before. It requires an act of Congress to authorize the transfer of property for those purposes. So that was one thing that we needed to address. And anyway, are there any questions?
So as it was from our last council meeting, we, as a council, were unified on 3 options that we presented to Hates Creek.
Correct.
As a council, we stand unanimous in supporting any one of those 3 options. And I guess at this time, we would love to hear from Hates Creek and anything you would like to say about the options we provided to you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Paul.
Can I pull this over? Okay.
You're fine, go for
Okay, all right, sorry. So I'm certain, maybe I'm not certain, but timing has been a challenge since we met, Mayor. A few days ago, Brad was out of town. Rod Hill's mother passed away. She was in her final stages, and he was responsible for all of those arrangements and a funeral. And so communication has not allowed us to collaborate and meet like we could have possibly done.
it. Can I pause you? Actually, can you state your name so that we have that for the record?
Paul Belknap, counsel for Hayes Creek.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we are desirous, we're here today, desirous to try and come to a resolution. And that's what we would like to do. We had what I thought was a very productive collaborative meeting with the mayor and council and with Darren. I realized that apparently there were some questions that came out of that. There was a feeling that the understanding that we left with from that meeting was not acceptable to all. So I'd like to first ask, because I think anytime you proceed, if you can understand what people's concerns are, that's part of the best solution to get to. So is there any questions that I could answer at the outset of discussing this?
So as a council, we felt pretty clearly that all three of the options that were provided would make Hayes Creek whole. They would not be out anything. And we were trying to be as fair as we could with the offers. And instead of just providing with one, we provide you with multiples.
But I guess my question, Mayor, is there was some difference in understanding because the MOU understood that it would have to come before the council and come before Hayes Creek wasn't agreed upon. And so if there's any questions about that, rather than first answering your point or your statement that the three options that you feel on your side of the table make my client whole, I'd like to understand if there's questions about what we discussed as a memorandum of understanding, why that's not acceptable.
It was not approved by the city council.
Understand, but is there any questions that I could answer or that we could discuss?
I think it's actually simply that it was not accepted
Okay, and why?
because it was not fair.
Then why did we leave that meeting feeling like this is something that could be presented?
It was presented and it was not accepted.
Okay,
Can I add something? Okay.
please.
That's all right. Keep going.
So are you cutting off questions here, Mayor?
Actually, as a city, we operate by the Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay.
And a city council member cannot speak unless they are provided the opportunity to speak. And we have chosen to follow that rule tonight.
Okay. Well, I can't comment on what you want to do if someone wants to speak and you don't want it to. So then let me proceed with a couple of things that I hope can bring this to a resolution tonight. I would like to start with the fact that if ownership, as opposed to possession, and part of our understanding when we left our meeting was we will give you possession, which in all sense of the terms is what you need to put a road across there, possession in perpetuity. If we're able to do that, then we are not required to have a special shareholders meeting that would be required to be called with notice and a vote taken where a majority of the shareholders would be asked to vote on transferring ownership of any asset of Hades Creek. So if we're simply transferring to you possession by way of an easement that was discussed, then we don't have to go through the delay and the time that it would take to have a special meeting of shareholders. The challenge becomes also with a special meeting of shareholders is that typically about 1/4 of the shareholders appear at meetings and get proxies. And so that's not your problem, that's our problem. But it delays the process of getting a vote and getting a determination. So that's the first issue. So I think if we took item number 3 as forwarded to us by Brad and made some suggestions to you as council members, I hope that this could bring this to a resolution. Those suggestions is that we give you immediate possession and easement in perpetuity. And what I'm saying here tonight, I want to preface just like we did, Mayor, in our meeting. This is a statement on my behalf that is meant for a potential compromise and resolution of a dispute. It's not to be used at later proceedings to say, well, Mr. Belknap, you said this or you offered that. Just as we discussed in our prior meeting, this is an attempt to bring resolution, and I claim the same privilege, which I assume you claim as well.
Yeah. In
regard to that issue. Thank you. So the first thing would be we give you possession and easement in perpetuity. So the 1.8 acres.
Can I pause you real quick? Darren, does the permanent easement, does that work for building a road? Or is it a right of way that we need? A permanent right of way?
I think it's the same thing. We can work out the details in the actual language of the easement. But in a condemnation proceeding, that's all you're getting anyway. You cannot, the state does not allow for the condemnation of the fee. It only, which is complete title to the property. It only allows an easement anyway.
Okay.
So an easement for purposes of building a right of way, a road.
Gotcha. Just want to make sure that's clear.
The second thing I need to preface this point with this fact. There are existing right now from the diversion of Bear Creek that takes water into 2 concrete pipes. They're called RCP pipes, reinforced concrete. Those pipes are not rated. When they were put in, they're not rated for heavy traffic like you might have on the freeway or other places where you're going to have 40,000 or 80,000 pound semis going over them. They're not rated for that kind of traffic. That being the case, we hope when this construction takes place that those pipes are not broken. Those pipes were put in the 1970s based upon information that I have from other cases of the exact same type of pipes. And Weber Basin has the same type of pipes that they're using. It is felt by current engineers that these pipes have about 100-year lifespan. So they're about halfway through that lifespan. We hope that they continue to be usable through their life. If they break during the construction process, that is one of the reasons why we ask that there be sleeves installed. Now, is there any question about the sleeves? Does everybody understand those? Okay.
Yes, and please understand that we have communicated as well that we want those concrete pipes protected through construction and making sure that there is no damage done to them.
But Mayor, with all due respect, you can't assure that as they currently sit, they weren't designed to have the weight go over them, and we hope nothing happens.
Correct.
Everybody in the room. But if it does, this is the point I want to get to, is that Hay Creek is assuming the cost of having to reroute the pipes coming from the diversion, going through the sleeves, down to supplying the reservoir and supplying Weber Basin through their valve to their conduit of pipes. So we're taking on that risk and that financial risk as part of this. So we agree with on the basis that I talked, we agree with the sleeves, that those would be engineered, the material, the type of sleeves. We talked at our meeting. We're not looking for a Ferrari. I think that's the words that you used, Mayor. We're not looking for that, but we are looking for an acceptable product that has the strength and the lasting ability to be used as the alternative if pipes have to go through there and when pipes have to go through those sleeves. So that's the reason that it's our understanding that there's been an agreement that these would be engineered according to Hay Creek specs, not something that we come up with as a lawyer or as management, but from a certified engineer. This is a statement what you need. This is the plan for how they need to be put in. And that engineer would then inspect that process during the construction. And so if that's the case, which we believe it has to be the case for all involved, then I move on to the fact that we'll also give you access easements, as we talked about, for the construction purposes. And then I want to go to the issue of the Green Street Reservoir. Now, just to give you very briefly a little background on that reservoir. That reservoir was built with funds from the United States government. It was built on county property at a substantial expense. That county property obviously was transferred to Fruit Heights City in the 1970s with no mention in the deed of the Green Street Reservoir. The deed talked about the county as saying, we're giving you this land. You agree to take care of the parks and the other things that are on it. But there was specifically, those were all outlined, the parks and those kind of responsibilities. There was no mention of the Green Street Reservoir. I believe that was the case because the county understood that the reservoir was built with government funds and was for the use of a reservoir to operate and to supply water to the residents of Fruit Heights and Kaysville City. There has to be some longevity to that agreement now that you own the property for a lot of reasons. And so I would ask that we tweak that issue on option number 3 to have 2 10-year terms with renegotiation at the end of the second 10-year term, so that there could be longevity with the agreement that this would be renewed at the end of that second-year term, but renegotiated in whatever terms at the time and whoever's around, thinks appropriate. Add the $100 a year. We had talked in our meeting, Mayor, as you know, about trading property. We don't need, and we're not asking under option 3 to receive property from Fruit Heights City. We already have an easement that has the pipes that are on Fruit Heights City property that go up to the diversion structure on Bear Creek. And so we are using that easement. It's been in place for over 100 years. And so we don't need to own your property. And so we don't need to get in the way at any time of trails and other things that have been discussed. And we're not planning on getting in the way of those. So if I could just consult with Dan for just a minute and see if I've left anything out, and then turn it over to any questions that you have for me.
Great.
Now, with all due respect to all of you, I had a conversation in a very productive way with the mayor and the other representatives at that meeting. And I expressed to them, and I'd like to express to each of you, that we're here to resolve this. But I wanted to say what I said to the mayor. And that is, I have made my living for many years in trial, in courts. And I have come to the conclusion, even though that's what I primarily do, that the best way to resolve things is not to be in court. We're not hoping, as we sit here, that there is a vote for a condemnation, because that's going to result in the requirement of the filing of a lawsuit. And in our opinion, I don't say this to be pejorative in any way. I hope it's productive, but there is not going to be immediate possession if that's what happens. There's multiple hearings and issues that will have to come up. The judge will have to weigh whether the proposed use of the road is of greater necessity than the existing infrastructure and use of the pipes and other things that have gone on. So
just so I can be clear, your proposal back would be option number 3, which would be 2 10-year leases on the Green Road property, with the option to extend that beyond that, in exchange for access, permanent easement of 0.178.
I think it's 0.181, whatever.
Yeah, somewhere minimal. And then we would also oversee making sure that the property is sleeved to Hates Creek's engineering specifications.
And inspection by Hayes Creek engineer.
Okay. So, okay. That's great. What we're going to do, just so you know, Mr. Belknap, we have on here the option number to move into a closed meeting. Our desire would be to move this city council meeting into a closed meeting just for a couple of moments so that we can discuss. And then we would open it back up to the city council meeting because all of us would like to come to a resolution tonight. Is that acceptable if we move our city council meeting into a closed meeting at this point in time, because this has to do with pending litigation and acquisition of real property, which are two items that would allow us to move into a closed hearing?
certainly not going to stand here and tell you what to do.
No, but I just want to be I want to be very transparent and let you know what our next steps would be.
Okay, understood.
Because then we could finalize this right now.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure.
So then I would look for, yes,
So, one of the challenges that we have is the immediacy of this.
Okay.
Right, so we would need to move pretty quick to get at least on those things. I mean, that's the challenge, right? We need to move pretty quick if we're gonna come to a resolution.
So Brad, I couldn't hear.
Yeah, your mic isn't really working.
So we're kind of under a time crunch, so we need to move really quickly on a resolution to all of that.
okay.
And we need to put a time on it, and maybe my proposal would be that, I guess we can talk about that in closed session.
So let's move to the closed session and then we can,
And that means, so the way we do it here is council stays where they are, public and other parties leave, staff stays here, right? And
yes.
so we probably ask you to either, I don't know,
But.
Can we get them some chairs or something? That'd be great. So then I'll look for a motion.
Do we go into closed session?
So how I can,
To discuss pending litigation.
Thank you, to discuss pending litigation.
so a motion from Diane and a second from Gary.